You are listening to stories at Chubby Orange Audio. Wish you an enjoyable listening experience. When Quinn Taylor wakes up as the doomed villainess in a zombie apocalypse novel, she refuses to follow the script to her inevitable death. But breaking free from the plot means befriending the intelligent zombie king, exposing the truth to the other characters, and fighting against the mysterious force that controls their world. In this darkly humorous transmigration tale, the real enemy isn't the zombies. It's the bad writing trying to kill you. Please listen to the story. That night, my fiancé awakened his wood-type supernatural ability. I walked into the female protagonist's room. That little girl was so capable that she made me lose my soul like that, wasn't she? The female protagonist tearfully begged them outside. He said one sentence. I said one sentence. After a while, the direction of the conversation outside gradually became eerie. I was taking a dump in the bathroom. I wonder if it would be too rude if I farted right now. Seeing the atmosphere outside becoming increasingly strange, I got annoyed, pulled up my pants, and angrily pressed the flush button. The sound of water rushing out immediately made it quiet outside. When I came out, the female protagonist was already sitting on the bed, tightly wrapped in a blanket. Her bare, pale shoulders were exposed outside, tears streaming down as she tremblingly explained. "It's not what you think. Dylan? You don't need to say any more, Vivian Cross." That scumbag fiancé Dylan Shaw looked at me with a face full of sympathy, holding the female protagonist tightly in his arms. I forced Vivian. "If you want to blame someone, blame me." I rolled my eyes at these two thick-skinned people. This truly is a scumbag male supporting character. While I was perfectly fine, I suddenly got a stomachache. There are 3 urgent needs in life. In a hurry and unable to find a place to relieve myself, I randomly entered a room. Who would have thought my shitty luck would lead me right into the female protagonist's room? I hadn't even warmed the seat when arguing voices rang out from outside. I silently went through the plot in my head. This segment is exactly when Dylan and the female protagonist were getting hot and heavy, while I, a typical evil female supporting character, after catching this scene, would frantically seek revenge on the female protagonist. In short, it's frantically seeking death. In the end, I had to accept the tragic outcome of dying without an intact corpse, because the female protagonist's husband sought revenge. Thinking about my final ending according to the plot, my whole body trembled with fear. Oh my God, I can't handle this. I don't want to die. I can't win this. Of the 36 strategies, fleeing is the best. Under Dylan's bullet-like warning gaze, I gave him a thumbs up. Remember to take good care of your body. You're amazing. Dylan used his ability and a vine appeared, wrapping around my wrist. His eyes were dark and ominous. "Quinn Taylor, watch your mouth. Think carefully about what you should and shouldn't say." I looked at him suspiciously. "What, big brother, do you have a mirror? When you said that, didn't your face burn? Right now, you're the one playing both sides, deceiving me, and yet you're telling me to shut up. What the hell are you? You're really all talk and no substance. Such insolent nonsense. Did your family serve as eunuchs for 3 generations? How else did you learn such meddling habits? Go eat your own shit." Under the dumbfounded, uncomprehending gazes of both of them, I opened the door and walked out. The next day, Dylan dared to publicly cancel the engagement with me. I don't know if he deliberately ordered people to mess with me or not, but these past few days, everyone in the base has been intentionally or unintentionally avoiding me. Am I sad? I'm actually quite happy. It's been a long time since I've been this free. After sleeping my fill and waking up, I dragged myself down to the kitchen to prepare breakfast. As soon as I reached the door, piercing moans penetrated my eardrums. "What? We shouldn't be here?" This voice sounds so familiar. Without a doubt, this is the female protagonist's voice. But the female protagonist in this novel only needs to diligently do one thing. I stood at the kitchen door and shouted, "Miss, what's wrong with you today? Don't you like it best when people watch you play? Yesterday Dylan was right beside you. Weren't you having a great time?" The sounds inside the kitchen immediately stopped. After a moment, chaotic arguing voices rang out. Slowly, I was truly angry, really angry. I am the messenger of justice. I immediately kicked open the door. You're here, and you too. What are you two drinking? What are you drinking? Do you know what food safety and hygiene means? Do you know what protecting community health means? This is where? This is the kitchen? Let me remind you two again. This is the kitchen. It's a public kitchen. Do you two know what a kitchen is for? For cooking. What are you two cooking here? I looked at the water splashed all over the kitchen table, then at the glistening water stains at the corner of his mouth. A wave of nausea rose in my throat. I punched him brutally in the face. Damn it, do you like eating shit that much? I'll take you to eat your fill. Just one afternoon, my name echoed like thunder throughout the base. Everyone called me boss. Yesterday I had directly slapped the prince of this base. Now from everyone pretending to avoid me, it turned into no one daring to come near me. Haha, they're afraid I'll go crazy, and not without reason. To be arrogant, you need to have the capital. Do people understand? Those bloody dog novels always build up the evil female supporting character as one of the first to awaken supernatural abilities. Awakening the earliest and awakening all those super rare, super awesome abilities. I level up very quickly. Just 1 year after the apocalypse, my supernatural ability has already broken through to level 6. You have to know that currently, most people who have awakened supernatural abilities have only broken through to level 2, at most level 3. Coincidentally, the male and female protagonists are the same. Haha, compared to me, they don't stand a chance of touching even a fingernail of mine. Haha, the strongest person after me in this crappy base has only just broken through to level 4. Living up to the reputation of having the strongest combat power in this shabby base, now even if I punched Dylan or kicked that prince bastard, they wouldn't dare even cough, let alone touch me. But this doesn't mean no one will deliberately come to trip me up. When night came, as soon as I stepped out of my room, I was blocked by 2 people. Oh my god, scary. It's you who made Vivian unhappy, isn't it? It's her. 2 identical faces, the same in different expressions, even their eyes looked exactly the same. My eyes lit up. Finally, the most famous twins in the book also appeared. They were surprised by the excited light in my eyes, standing there stunned, looking down along my gaze. They looked directly at their own pants. Don't blame me, it's really not my fault. The description of these 2 in this book is really very impressive. These 2 are twins but awakened completely opposite ability systems. One awakened ice powers, while the other awakened fire powers. The ability system also plays an important role in changing a person's body. This is exactly the 80-second tribulation of the female protagonist. But the female protagonist's halo shines as brilliantly as the golden headband on Sun Wukong's head. With her extraordinary talent and amazing endurance, the female protagonist still walked strong to the end of the story. But if it were someone else, don't even think about it, they'd be lucky to get a lunchbox from the synopsis. I still remember the plot in the story. Every time this pair of twins appeared together, the base's registration applications would skyrocket. The twins were frightened by my strange gaze and ran away in terror. The 4 male protagonists in the base joined forces to help the female protagonist honorably work hard all night. The next day, when the team went out on a mission, she naturally couldn't get up. After a few days of calm, the male protagonist finally waited for an opportunity to use cruel tactics to kill me off. On the way back, they took advantage of when my abilities hadn't recovered yet, pushed me out of the car door, and threw me into the warm embrace of zombies. I was speechless. Actually, I was flexing. I am the pillar ability user of the base. Their choice to abandon me means this base is doomed. Heh. Relying on their heads, full of pink bubbles of beautiful love, just thinking about how to kill the female protagonist. Or planning to rely on those ice and fire abilities that are only pretty but not practically useful to expand the base. Dream on. Since my abilities haven't fully recovered yet, I have no choice but to sneak around and hide from the zombies' loving care while running into an abandoned factory. I almost awakened zombie abilities too. After resting and gathering strength for a while, I stared intently at the abandoned factories around me. It seems the plot has a segment where the female protagonist accidentally finds the golden finger, a ring that can open a space. The abandoned factory described in the book is exactly these abandoned factories I'm hiding in now. With a heart full of enthusiasm, I excitedly followed the plot's description to find the door that opens to the room containing the golden finger, space necklace hidden in the research room's cabinet. My shitty dog luck is finally about to turn into a golden finger. Haha, I eagerly pushed open the door. When I looked up, I immediately met a pair of blood red eyes, platinum white hair, a handsome angular face with a teardrop mole at the corner of the eye. For the first time in my life, I wished I didn't have such a good memory. The last time I read information about him in the plot, it said that, if he were to take the stage, he would honorably become the strongest villain boss, the Zombie King. The difference between people, does it need to be this obvious? Damn me. I quickly slammed the door shut, turned around to flee. Before I could even lift my foot to do anything, my head suddenly throbbed with pain, my body stiffened and froze in place, unable to move. Cold sweat poured down my neck. This is the control ability. The door behind me was pushed open with a bang. That pale face appeared before me once again. Still those blood-red eyes as before. I was confused and didn't dare look directly. Damn it, this time I'm really dead. Hell, I saw the Zombie King raise his hand, sharp claws stopping at my chest. I desperately closed my eyes, waiting to receive my lunchbox. The intense pain I anticipated never came. Instead, a cold hand like ice covered my chest. I shuddered. I slowly looked down to see a pale, skeletal hand, truly zombie-like, placed on my chest. As if it had never encountered anything so soft and warm in its life, the Zombie King's bright red eyes lit up. Why do I see a glimmer of excitement in his soulless eyes? Oh my God, he mumbled a few vague words. Soft. I was speechless. Haha, great. I really shouldn't have such high expectations for this brainless, stupid Zombie King. For the third time today, I swatted Hawk Morrison's hand away. I glared angrily at his face. Don't touch me? God not only closed a door in front of me but also shut all the windows. But as long as the windows aren't completely sealed, I can still smash through and crawl out. I looked at the brainless Zombie King cowering in the corner, hugging his legs. After that slap to his hand, he had an indescribable, wonderful feeling. I used to wonder why the final boss villain only appeared near the end of the story. Now I understand, because right now he's suffering from intellectual disability. Appearing at this half-wit stage would be laughable. For example, like right now. I waved to the person in the corner. Come here. Hawk tilted his head, not understanding what I was saying, but still obediently stood up and walked to me. I held out my hand and said, "Hold out your hand." He quietly looked at my extended hand without any reaction. You go over to the left, go. He slowly raised his head. Oh, forget it. You quickly go back to where you were. Hawk's eyes widened as he looked at me, finally understanding what I was saying, quickly extending his hand with a look of pride on his face. I looked at the bony hand in front of me. It turns out it's not normal intellectual disability. Come here, let's read together. Or should I grab Hawk's chin and force him to read the writing on the table? He had been sitting listening to me ramble for a whole hour, and finally couldn't take it anymore, shaking his head and trying to sneak away. Not long ago, I finally remembered the name of the Zombie King. Hawk. For whatever reason, at least currently Hawk has no intention of killing me. This is definitely great news. Even if he's clueless like this, occasionally groping me a bit, I can handle it. In the original plot, when he appeared, he was already the villain boss that no one could defeat. But now he's, suffering from intellectual disability. If I take advantage of the current opportunity to stay by his side, maybe later when he recovers, he might remember our friendship during his clueless days and protect me from the tragic death of the evil female supporting character. After careful consideration, I decided to guide him to gradually return to being like a normal person. First, traveling with someone who has normal thinking ability is better than with someone with intellectual disability, who only wants to grope my chest every day, right? Second, wait until he regains his peak intelligence. He'll be moved by the efforts I'm making now to help him recover. In short, regardless of the reason or purpose, my strong survival instinct reminds me that maybe he doesn't want to kill me either. I must prepare a death exemption token for myself in the future. But if I really stay by his side, what identity should I use so that I won't be accused of betraying humanity while also not making Hawk feel uncomfortable? While thinking, I felt the surroundings suddenly become quiet. I came back to my senses. Hawk was silent, his fiery eyes glued to my chest. I questioned, it seems I've been overthinking, haven't I? I mocked. The old saying goes, when the wind blows in the evening, follow that direction. As a well-behaved descendant who knows how to listen to ancestors, I'll just go with his flow. I pointed to my face and smiled wickedly at Hawk. Do you know who I am? A hint of doubt flashed in his eyes. He honestly shook his head. I smiled even brighter. I am your mother. Come on, call me Mom. Hurry up and call Mom, you naughty child. Don't you like my chest? If you dare call me mom, I dare let you have my chest right away. Zombies also have a hierarchical system that's hundreds of times stricter than humans. I noticed that in the factory where Hawk and I are staying, there isn't a single low-level zombie that dares to come within half a step. What shocks me even more is that under Hawk's command, there are actually several intelligent zombies specifically used for errands. Almost every day, Hawk has to go out, his whereabouts very mysterious. He might leave today, but who knows when he'll return. Every time he returns from outside, his blood-red amber eyes become much dimmer, even showing a bit of white around the edges. His skin no longer looks pale green but appears increasingly like a normal human. I don't know what he goes out to do, but every time he has to leave, he always leaves behind us several intelligent zombies in the factory for me to boss around as I please. I sit on the sofa with a level 7 zombie obediently squatting below massaging my feet, and behind me is a zombie expertly massaging my shoulders with skilled hands. Life can only go so far. How much more blissful can it get? Occasionally being groped on the chest, I can handle it. Haha, the window was pushed open from outside, and a pink-haired zombie agilely rolled into the room. If a person eats iron, then rice is also steel. As a healthy, law-abiding human, I can't go without food. This pink-haired zombie is exactly the chef who goes out every morning to find food and returns every evening to cook and serve me. It took out from its body a box of instant porridge, skillfully using its fire ability to carefully heat water to cook porridge for me. In no time, a bowl of white porridge along with a bowl of green seaweed egg drop soup was brought before me. My face turned as green as that bowl of soup, looking bewildered at the egg drop soup. I really shouldn't have placed too much hope in a zombie's cooking skills. The fact that it can find food for me is already quite outstanding. But every day it's either seafood porridge or vegetable porridge. If not vegetable porridge, then plain porridge. Even zombies can't swallow this stuff, let alone a carnivorous person like me. I sighed. When will I ever be able to have a really delicious meal? The pink-haired zombie seemed to understand my disappointed sigh. It patted its head, and an eyeball fell out with a plop into the seaweed egg soup. I opened my eyes wide. It wiped away the few drops of pus flowing from its eye, shook the soup bowl in its hand, then offered it to me like presenting a treasure. Its eyeball floated in the soup, bobbing up and down. I was touched by this dedication, truly heartfelt for its master. Thank you, but I respectfully decline this sentiment. Why is it as stupid as Hawk? Oh my god. Hawk returned to the factory covered in wounds. He has level 9 abilities. Up to this point, I'm certain no one can injure him. But that gaping hole still bleeding puss can't lie. I approached, applied a thin layer of ice to the wound to stop the bleeding, then stuffed the protruding intestines back into his belly, and continued using thin ice to bind it tightly. Fortunately, he's a zombie who died long ago, otherwise he would have gotten a ticket to meet his maker before me. Hawk was held in my arms, quietly staring at my face without blinking. His pale lips, pallid face, fortunately. He's handsome enough to salvage the situation. On his face, the pus combined with the protruding intestines from earlier. Just looking at it makes one's heart ache. He weakly leaned against me. I softened a bit, gently stroking the teardrop mole at the corner of his eye. Baby, be good. Mom is here. Don't be afraid. Great, the zombie king has turned into a pitiful little puppy that needs protection. Mom will hug you. I'm getting attached to him again. Zombies are still zombies. After just one night, the wounds on Hawk's body had almost completely healed. During his recovery time, he rarely went out. I took this opportunity to frantically stuff all kinds of knowledge into his head, oriented toward living a socialist life that follows the laws of the party and state. Hawk's increasingly human-like face finally allowed him to have simple conversations with me. The next day, he was eager and anxious to resume his wandering lifestyle outside. Just like this, another week passed. I still diligently searched throughout the factory, but couldn't find any trace of the space necklace. My sudden change in the plot had triggered butterfly effects, changing many things. From thunderous changes to gentle rain and breeze, finally condensing into storms and whirlwinds. When Hawk returned, a small, intelligent female zombie with a beautiful face had appeared beside him. Seeing her, I immediately froze in shock. According to the original plot, a female zombie would indeed appear beside Hawk, but she has no abilities. She is extremely weak but becomes an indispensable member of the zombie army under Hawk's command. Although she has no abilities, she possesses an extremely high IQ. This very thing helped her become a highly valued strategist in Hawk's zombie army. Thanks to her suggestions, Hawk has repeatedly obstructed the male and female protagonists, many times almost sending them to meet their ancestors. However, the original plot never showed any record of how Hawk became the zombie king. When he appeared, he was already the zombie king. I only knew that sooner or later, such a female zombie would appear by his side. What I didn't expect was for her to appear so early. I leaned against the door, staring fixedly at Hawk pulling the female zombie toward me. Beside him were several level 4 and 5 zombies following him submissively. He looked up, saw me, and his eyes immediately lit up. He tossed her aside and approached me. "Mom." "So Mom is here." The female zombie's eyes flashed with surprise when she heard Hawk's words. I calmly observed her expression before responding to Hawk's conversation. But I kept paying attention to her attitude. At the bottom of her eyes, there seemed to be a hint of amazement that was too obvious. She quickly adjusted her emotions to appear just like other mindless zombies, standing there looking at us submissively. When I glanced over again, I accidentally caught her probing gaze. In her eyes, a hint of killing intent flashed by, as if it had never existed. I immediately stopped talking, looking elsewhere. I don't know where her hostility toward me stems from, but with my survival instincts, I'm certain I must start being wary of this seemingly intelligent zombie. She really is a zombie. These past few days, taking advantage of Hawk having to go out, I deliberately had the other zombie underlings stay behind, wandering back and forth in front of her alone. I wanted to see what her reaction to me would be. Although there was still intense killing intent in her eyes, she could indeed endure it, not moving, standing still in place. This sounds reasonable, but think about it carefully. She has no abilities, no close companions around her. If she really intervened to sabotage the revolutionary relationship I deliberately created with Hawk during this time, how could she, as someone with a super high IQ, do that? If she really rashly made a move against me, I'd be even more surprised. After a few peaceful days, this female zombie remained calm and didn't dare act, but the zombies outside could no longer sit still. Among zombies, there is indeed a very clear hierarchical division. High-level zombies will suppress low-level zombies, but this doesn't mean all zombies are willing to submit to Hawk's oppression. A group of zombies suddenly appeared south of the factory. This zombie group was led by several intelligent zombies attacking the zombie group under Hawk's command. In just one short day, many zombies with broken arms or legs appeared outside the factory. This proves there was an intense battle between the zombies. Zombies fighting zombies is even more terrifying and brutal than humans fighting. Hawk wants to become the zombie king. He must go through this thorny, pus-filled path. The next day, 2 level 8 corpses suddenly appeared among the zombies opposing Hawk. Hawk brought along the red-haired cooking zombie to eliminate them decisively. I stayed in the factory cleaning up the fish that slipped through the net from outside. Just as my ice blade severed the head of a low-level zombie, a whooshing sound filled with thick killing intent suddenly rang out behind me. I was startled and quickly dodged. The female zombie standing behind me had no expression on her face, coldly looking at me. A level 5 water-type zombie jumped down from the second floor. After standing firmly on the ground, it exchanged glances with the female zombie without saying another word. A second later, water arrows came shooting toward me like lightning. The power difference between a level 5 zombie and me is naturally a gap in class. It didn't take much time before it was beheaded at my feet. I shook off the disgusting sticky substances on my hand, my face darkening as I condensed an ice sword in my hand, flying toward the female zombie. Although I don't know what consequences killing her, a supporting character who plays quite an important role in the plot, would cause, I only know that today she threatens my existence. I must quickly eliminate this potential threat before things go too far. She resigned herself to fate, standing still in place, staring at me. My ice sword got closer and closer, still not moving an inch. When the ice sword was about to touch her neck, she suddenly looked at me with an eerie smile. I immediately realized something was wrong, my heart sinking violently. The next moment, I was hit directly by an extremely powerful force from mid-air, flying toward the wall. My whole body was in excruciating pain, my shoulders and abdomen felt like they were pierced by 10,000 swords. My head momentarily became empty, painful to the point where I couldn't breathe, as if someone was strangling my neck. I tremblingly raised my head. Hawk was standing in front of the female zombie with his back to me. He slowly turned around, his blood, red eyes exactly like the first day I met him. His fierce expression, bulging veins, just a slight movement of his finger caused bone, deep pain to explode in my head again. I couldn't hold back anymore and vomited a mouthful of blood. My internal organs felt shattered. Hawk's eyes seemed to be blinded by the color of blood, his whole body shaking. His eyes immediately returned to their normal state. Hawk's pupils suddenly contracted. He instantly teleported to my side, crying in panic, "Mom, son, only a..." Hawk knelt on the ground, his hands trembling, not daring to touch me. I closed my eyes tightly, using all my strength to push him away. "Go away." Hawk fell to the ground, stunned as he looked at me. I gritted my teeth, forced myself to freeze the bleeding wounds with a thin layer of ice, then staggered to my feet. He panicked and stood up, wanting to come help me, but I had already slapped him hard across the face. I saw a flash of grievance and hurt in his eyes. Ha, the one who got hurt is me. The one who should be hurt should also be me. What's he got to be hurt about? Don't call me Mom. I directly interrupted him. I was never your mother from beginning to end. I was just lying to you. Go away. Not far away, the female zombie stood quietly watching all of this from start to finish, her face showing a contemptuous smile. I stared at her for a while, then turned and left. This peaceful time really made me forget some things. I had truly forgotten how tragically the original owner had to die under Hawk's hands. Clearly, I knew the plot in advance, yet I was still fantasizing. I even wanted to continue staying beside the person who would kill me in the future. As a result, reality gave me a hard slap to wake me from my dreams. Hawk's state just now was very strange. I could naturally see it, but this further proves that the original plot will truly not change. At least the main thread of the plot cannot be changed. I simply wanted to kill a supporting character who would play quite an important role in the future, and immediately I was warned. It's as if there's an invisible hand manipulating the development of the entire plot from behind, rearranging all the chaos and attacking variables that could affect the plot. I don't dare imagine what would happen to me if I continued to stay by Hawk's side. Wanting to rely on my own abilities to change the plot, but forgetting that my own life is the most important thing. In the end, it was just a childish dream. But now it's time to wake up from the dream. I had already broken through to level 6 abilities. Looking at the wounds on my body that seemed serious but weren't actually life-threatening, while waiting for my body to recover, I deliberately avoided Hawk. He stood guard at the door all night. Through the crack in the door, I knew he hadn't left at all, nor did he dare to come in. Somehow he seemed a bit pitiful and tragic. I don't blame him for everything. This is the plot that had to happen. The author used his hands to give me a hard slap, forcing me to return to the path I should take. Ever since I transmigrated into this world, I always thought I was an independent individual separate from the plot, but I forgot that every world has its own rules. If I stubbornly insist on changing things, what will happen to me? I shuddered thinking of 2 words: death. Whether it's Hawk or me, reducing contact with each other is something that must be done. I was originally someone who treasures life, so I took advantage of the chaos in the factory due to the war between the 2 zombie factions and quietly slipped away. Since God wants me to return to my original position, then I'll go back. Only a stubborn donkey would want to fight against the entire sky. I deliberately returned to the base when the wounds on my body were still bleeding and unhealed. I had been missing for nearly half a month. Under the fabrications of Dylan and several male protagonists who went with him that day, everyone in the base probably thought I had died in the warm embrace of zombies long ago. But here I am, still alive and kicking. When I kicked open the base's gate, what met my eyes was the female protagonist who I hadn't seen in a long time, being tightly held in the arms of an unfamiliar man, her clothes disheveled. Haha. Seeing me, the female protagonist was stunned with her mouth agape. The tall man in front of her trembled strangely. I smiled satisfactorily, tears of joy in the corners of my eyes. Ah, this familiar dog blood plot. Why do I suddenly understand the happiness Robin felt when returning to the drama-filled gang? Hello, ancestors of you people. I'm back. I smiled provocatively and greeted Dylan, whose face was turning pale. The unhealed wounds on my body naturally became evidence that I was a brave heroine who escaped from the zombie encirclement under life and death circumstances. Vivian really struggled out of the man's arms and rushed to me with tearful eyes, hugging me tightly. Quinn, where have you been these days? You scared me and everyone to death. Hoo. Dylan and the others all said you were dead. I laughed, looking at Dylan's anxious, worried expression, gently patting Vivian's back to comfort her with a few words, but never mentioned the fact that Dylan's group had deliberately abandoned me among the zombies. A hint of doubt flashed in Dylan's eyes. I patted my head. I almost forgot something. What? Vivian looked at me curiously. Dylan straightened up, looking at me worriedly. Nothing. I just remembered wrong. After speaking, I raised my eyebrows and smiled. Hearing my words, Dylan breathed a sigh of relief and smiled uglier than crying. Among the concerned inquiries from everyone, his face was as pale as paper. How does it feel, you little thief? If I don't scare you to death, I won't be worthy of the Taylor name, you damn male-supporting scumbag. That evening, the prince and the twin brothers returned from outside. Seeing me, they were as horrified as if they had seen a ghost. Quickly dragging Dylan aside to whisper and plot, not knowing what conspiracy they were hatching. I couldn't care less about them. No matter what, they couldn't guess how I managed to carve a bloody path back to the base. So they wouldn't dare touch me. A few minutes later, they threw my matter to the back of their minds. Why? Because the strange man I met this morning walked into the room, went straight to Vivian, and stuck to her like glue. The man would occasionally whisper some nonsense in Vivian's ear, making her blush and coquettishly hit his shoulder playfully, as if not hitting at all. The faces of the 4 male protagonists immediately darkened like the bottom of a pot, but they didn't step forward to stop it. Haha, it turns out this is the 5th male protagonist, the pretty boy that Dylan mentioned, and Vivian's childhood sweetheart, Connor Hall. I watched with interest as 5 men jealously competed for the female protagonist Vivian's attention. Vivian widened her pitiful eyes, suddenly remembering something, hurriedly went to the nearby cabinet to search. Ouch. She pulled her hand back with a cry of pain. The male protagonists immediately swarmed around Vivian. She raised her hand, and a drop of blood fell from her small fingertip onto the space necklace in her hand. The thing I had searched desperately for in the factory without finding. I was confused. I'm screwed. Quinn, is this necklace yours? I accidentally picked up this necklace near your room before. Connor said this is a good thing. I was afraid you had lost it, so I kept it safe for you first. The drop of blood soaked into the necklace, and the chain emitted a blinding light. After a moment, like a living creature, it automatically fastened tightly around her wrist. What's happening? Vivian opened her eyes wide in surprise. Connor stepped forward, his eyes flashing with knowing understanding. It seems this necklace has recognized you as its master, Vivian. From now on, you are its owner. At this point, Vivian had already sensed the infinite space within the necklace. Her eyes widened, her cheeks flushed red with excitement. I was heartbroken and exhausted, standing there dazed and unable to recover. Slowly, what the hell? Author, come out here. I need to tear you apart. Vivian was just a level 2 healing ability user. The space necklace was an enormous surprise for her. There are many level 2 healing ability users, but someone with infinite space creates a huge difference, elevating the base to a new level. She naturally became aware of this capability. Her eyes showed a ripple of understanding. Can I really do this? Dylan held her in his arms, murmuring painfully, of course, if it chose our Vivian, it must have its reasons. It's okay, don't cry anymore. This damn dog blood plot again. I want to smash this damn plot to pieces. Yes, does the female protagonist's halo need to be so blindingly bright? Before I could escape from my chaotic thoughts, the room door was pushed open with a bang. A woman with a beautiful face and red lips walked in arrogantly, came before me, crossed her arms, and snorted coldly. I say, Quinn, why didn't you just die out there? What a pity God kept your worthless life for some reason. Don't be too regretful about me. Looking at her, I finally remembered this character from the book. This is Yvonne Shaw, another childhood sweetheart of Dylan who had secretly loved him for many years. Because of the engagement between the original owner and Dylan, she spent all day just thinking about how to mess with me. Later, when Dylan canceled the engagement with me and turned to love Vivian, she immediately became a stupid female supporting character who likes to seek death. But someone tell me what this situation is. I looked at Dylan and Vivian, two people standing exactly 2 steps away from me, hugging each other like they were hiding from someone. I turned to look at Ivan, who came here specifically to provoke me. I was speechless. Haha, is she blind? If she's blind, say something so I can enlighten her. I pointed at the 2 people sticking together not far away. Look over there. Yvonne laughed contemptuously at me. What are you saying? At this moment you still want to rely on Dylan. Let me tell you, don't even think about it. She's really blind, isn't she? No kidding. She really couldn't see Dylan and Vivian's mouths stuck together like they were glued with superglue. Dylan, being called out by name, darkened his face. Vivian shyly made an "ah" sound. He immediately bent down to pick up the female protagonist and carried her upstairs. The remaining male protagonists quickly followed. Using my toes, I knew what they were following for. Naturally, I was also worried about the female protagonist. I continued pointing. Go on, look. Yvonne swept a contemptuous gaze over me as if seeing through the mundane world. Are you trying to create hatred between us? Haha. She's truly blind, no joke. Fortunately, Yvonne's brain finally functioned normally one day. That night, Yvonne gathered all the courage of her lifetime to confess to Dylan. The result was that he directly and bluntly rejected her feelings. Yvonne was devastated. She was angry. She was jealous of Vivian. According to the plot, after this incident, she officially became corrupted, naturally taking on the work I originally had to do, the work of an evil, malicious female supporting character. Indeed, according to the plot, every day I should be trying to bully the female protagonist, creating obstacles for her. Of course, these things would all be easily resolved by the male protagonists who were head over heels for the female protagonist. Everything seemed to still be going in the right direction. The relationship between the female protagonist and the male protagonists continued to develop through processes everyone knows about. Alongside this was the evil, stupid female supporting character always trying to create all sorts of trouble for the female protagonist. Looking at the plot from this angle, it seems I had truly stepped outside the plot, and the tragic ending like before was it's just that every time I saw Yvonne being forced to lower her intelligence in those bloody, ridiculous situations that shouldn't have happened, using her head to constantly provoke the male protagonists to seek her own death, then being disappointed and hurt by Dylan and Vivian's protection, again and again, I always had a very strange feeling that I couldn't explain. It was like I had forgotten something very important. Early the next morning, the base sent several groups out to scout and check the outer city areas. After just half a day, they returned in terror. A level 9 zombie leader had suddenly appeared in the south. The entire base immediately fell into chaos. It seemed to be frantically searching for someone. Our team almost didn't make it back. I was shocked and stunned. Not long after, the base received urgent news from the southern bases. I led Dylan and other high-level ability users to search for and rescue the missing members of the scouting team. I also want to go with them. Vivian grabbed my hand. Now I have the space necklace. I can also contribute and fight alongside everyone. Vivian looked at me with determined eyes full of resolve. I don't want to become useless, only able to watch teammates charge forward to protect me. I silently looked at her, finally nodding in agreement. Regarding Vivian, I had never truly hated her. Even though she's the female protagonist of this novel, she couldn't escape the hollow Mary Sue image and female protagonist halo that the author built for her. Sometimes she could be weak, could be fragile, but the plot didn't allow her to be cowardly or lack determination. After this apocalyptic disaster that destroyed humanity, she could even rise to become the master of her own territory. I began to worry. The level 9 zombie they were talking about, could it be Hawk? If so, then he had appeared much earlier than in the original plot. Although he had now broken through to level 9 zombie abilities and few people could touch him, due to the butterfly effect of the plot, this matter certainly had hidden complications that shouldn't be underestimated. What if something happened to him? Dylan and the prince led the way south, while I, the twins, and Vivian were responsible for protecting the survivors found along the way. On the road, we encountered quite a few zombies rushing toward us, but they were all easily eliminated by our entire group, because most of them were just low-level zombies. Everything went surprisingly smoothly. I looked at the gloomy sky, and the unease in my heart grew stronger. I had a premonition that a great storm was about to hit, and we were in the eye of the storm, peacefully waiting for the big waves. Until a very loud explosion sound came from far away, flames shot high up, staining half the sky red. This flame struck my vision hard, and a loud boom immediately rang in my head. Only now did I realize what I had forgotten. I was appearing in exactly the place described where I would have to die. Although everything didn't happen at the right time according to the original rules, everything I was experiencing now, including this explosion, matched every scene where I had to die in the plot. According to the original plot, under Dylan and the male protagonist's leadership, the zombie wave, without Hawk's presence, was quickly torn to pieces by our group. The mission at that time was just a simple rescue mission. The male protagonists intended to kill the original owner by deliberately detonating a tank full of gasoline at a gas station, while the original owner was doing her best to use her abilities to extinguish the fire. They then took the opportunity to lure the zombie horde to me. I looked up at the towering flames in the distance, my heart pounding violently. Finally, I understood the reason for that inexplicable feeling of unease earlier. Incredible as it may seem, I had to admit that the plot had been filling in the gaps caused by the butterfly effect I created. It had started from when Hawk was injured, but I hadn't realized it at the time. The fatal injury with protruding intestines that appeared on Hawk should have originally appeared on Dylan. But because he wanted to throw me into the zombie's embrace, he deliberately took a detour, coincidentally escaping the disaster that was supposed to happen. The plot doesn't allow such large discrepancies to occur, so even if Dylan avoided the disaster, someone else had to bear that wound instead. As a substitute, this wound fell on Hawk. This incident once again proved that no matter what price, the plot must be completed, even under extremely twisted and unreasonable circumstances. Just like my evil female supporting role had deviated from the original trajectory, not completing the tasks that were supposed to be completed, so the plot naturally found Yvonne as a replacement to complete everything. Previously, I always had a very strange feeling, but now when I examine it carefully, it's because under the invisible hand of the plot, Yvonne had naturally completed all the work that should have been done by me. It was precisely for this reason that at times I felt Yvonne was being forced to lower her intelligence to cause trouble for Vivian for no reason. I thought I had distanced myself from the original plot, but it turns out from beginning to end, the plot never changed direction. It was just that someone had taken my place, driving toward the original plot that was bound to happen. Death, suspicion, rescue mission betrayal, until the corpse was torn to pieces. Despite Vivian's obstruction, I tried my best to rush closer to the fire. Crack, crack, snap. I always thought escaping from the plot was good, but I never thought about the consequence, that Yvonne would have to die in my place. This is too horrifying and cowardly. Even if this is just a fictional world in a novel, when you actually live in this novel, I realized that everyone has courage, hope, and the bravery to fight to become survivors on the final day. They are no longer simple paper people without thoughts. The fire blazed high into the sky, black smoke billowing. The burning zombies made crackling sounds, staggering toward the center of the flames. The air was filled with a fishy smell. The feeling of unease in my heart became more and more intense. When I got closer and closer to the epicenter of the fire, the nerves in my head snapped with a sound. Yvonne was covered in wounds, thorny vines wrapped tightly around her. Zombies kept approaching, raising their sharp, bony hands to tear apart her combat uniform. She had broken through to wood-type abilities, but was now too severely injured for her abilities to have time to recover. Moreover, her hands and feet were bound. Currently, the only thing helping her resist was a trace of defiance and hope for rescue. The last straw. In no time, those dirty, rotting zombie hands had grabbed her legs, tearing apart the already damaged fabric. During the process of turning into zombies, the only thing they didn't have was the consciousness in their heads. They only had the most primitive desires and impulses. Even high-level zombies like Hawk couldn't truly eliminate this desire. Do you know what this means? It means Juan would have to die under endless humiliation and pain inflicted by the zombies. On the slope not far away, Dylan stood coldly observing all of this. Even when Yvonne was struggling desperately to escape the vines, he immediately controlled those vines to tighten back to their original state. Yvonne looked up at him in despair, tears streaming down continuously as the zombies climbed on top of her one by one. Yvonne closed her eyes tightly, no longer having any will to resist, letting her life gradually slip away. Damn it! My whole body trembled as I gritted my teeth, condensing sharp ice swords to eliminate all the zombies around Vaughn. When I approached her, Dylan suddenly stepped forward to block me. His eyes were black as ink, without a trace of light, as if covered by a layer of dark fog. Get lost. I looked up. Vaughn's situation wouldn't wait. I didn't think about the consequences and decided to kill Dylan. After the ice sword pierced through him, I used all my strength to punch him hard in the face, shouting, "Do you know what you're doing?" Dylan staggered and fell to the ground, convulsing a few times. The punches and wounds piercing through him caused the blood vessels in his neck to bulge. His eyes flickered a few times, and he gradually regained clarity. I didn't bother to care about what had happened to him, immediately rushing to Yvonne. The fire was becoming more and more fierce. The smell of Vaughn's and Dylan's blood spread through the air, attracting many zombies toward us. On one hand, I had to desperately extinguish the increasingly fierce fire, while on the other hand, I had to deal with the zombies that kept seizing opportunities to pounce on us. I was distracted and gradually became exhausted. Yvonne's injuries were more serious than I thought. The leg wound was so deep it exposed white bone. She had lost too much blood and collapsed on the ground. The situation became more difficult than ever. I gritted my teeth, raised my hand to condense ice, and decisively fought 4 zombies that had broken through the zombie crowd and were charging toward me. Suddenly, a roar rang out behind me. Another fierce zombie charged toward my back. I no longer had the energy to use skills to resist. I could only helplessly watch those sharp claws getting closer and closer to me, pursing my lips weakly. In the end, I still had to meet this ending, haha. I couldn't even die alone. I had to drag along someone who shouldn't have died to pave the way for me. The zombie in front of me suddenly froze as if controlled by someone, letting out a miserable, twisted sound. Its arms hugged its head tightly, drilling deep into its soft brain, and fell down in an instant. Before my eyes, the image of the writhing zombie changed to a solid chest. The platinum hair of that person brushed against my neck, making me itch lightly, pulling me back to reality. Feeling the person in front of me trembling with fear, I slowly put my arms around him. "I'm okay, Hawk." He still held me tightly. The zombies in the distance could only stare at me without daring to approach because they were suppressed by Hawk's level. After a long while, he slowly raised his head, carefully checking the wounds on my body. After confirming there were no serious injuries that would threaten my life, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. He coldly met the blazing gaze of the female zombie in the distance. The female zombie's expression was gloomy. "Long time no see. This time when we met again, she seemed much more human, like in temperament." Behind her was a dense army of zombies. She gestured toward Hawk. He just quietly looked at her, waiting. After a long time without receiving a response, the female zombie's expression became twisted, her face even more gloomy. She squinted slightly as if making a determination, then waved her hand. The zombie army behind her surged toward us like a tide. I saw quite a few level 5 and above zombies among them. Although Hawk's level is indeed high, with just his strength alone, he couldn't possibly handle this endless wave of zombies. Even if he wanted to escape this tight encirclement by himself, it would be difficult, let alone with 2 dead weights like me and Yvonne dragging him down. The zombie army got closer and closer to us. Suddenly, an extremely large earthquake appeared, splitting the ground in 2. Countless vines grew up from below, twisting to form a solid wall of vines separating us from the zombies. I was startled and turned around. Dylan, clutching his wound, stood there looking at the unconscious Vaughn on the ground with a complex expression. When he met my gaze, he was startled and surprised. At the bottom of his eyes flashed a trace of confusion. Thanks to the vine wall blocking the zombie army, we quickly broke through the encirclement. As soon as we got out, we met the base's support team coming to help. The people with healing abilities hurried forward to take the unconscious Vaughn, who had lost too much blood. Someone saw Dylan's wounds and wanted to treat him, but he refused. The other male protagonists were all stunned when they saw Hawk standing behind me. Even though Hawk now looked exactly like a normal human, there are still many differences between normal humans and zombies. So it's easy to recognize that Hawk had broken through to level 9 abilities and was a zombie. They looked at each other, acting as if they didn't know anything, and remained silent. Yvonne had broken through to level 5 abilities. She has excellent qualities. After bravely surviving 2 extremely dangerous treatment sessions, she had finally almost fully recovered. After waking up, Yvonne saw Dylan's face standing by the bed and immediately used all her strength to sit up, walked over to him, and slapped him hard across the face. I was standing far away but still heard a loud smack. It seems like one slap wasn't enough to relieve her anger. She gritted her teeth, her eyes full of hatred, and used all her strength to slap him again. Dylan stood still and took it. Everyone watching the entire process of Yvonne's 2 loud slaps was immediately stunned. They didn't understand why Yvonne, who just a few hours ago was still desperately hopeless because Dylan didn't reciprocate her feelings, could now hate him to the bone. I briefly and succinctly recounted the process of how Yvonne got her injuries, skipping the details. That can't be possible. Vivian's face turned pale as she spoke up to object. Dylan couldn't possibly do such a thing. Dylan, standing nearby, didn't speak up to refute. His face darkened as he knelt down, holding his head and pulling his hair in agony. I don't know what was wrong with me. At that time, I felt like I was being controlled by someone. My mind was empty. The only thing I could think of at that moment was that I had to kill Yvonne. Clearly, Yvonne is my teammate, so how could I possibly? I really never intended to kill her. I don't know. He seemed to be thinking about something, his voice trembling as he looked up at me with regretful eyes. Last time was exactly the same. I didn't speak. This time, the twin brothers simultaneously changed their expressions. Obviously, they had thought of what possibility could occur. The atmosphere immediately froze. Dylan stubbornly refused treatment. For the greater good, I had already knocked him unconscious and handed him over to the healing ability users. Joke, there's still a zombie army waiting for an opportunity outside the base gate. At this point, still pretending to be arrogantly regretful, what the hell is that about? He's not afraid to act, but I am afraid. The rescue team finally returned to the base. I pondered deeply. After waiting for them to recover considerably, I gathered them together. Looking at their confused expressions, I hesitated for a long time before deciding to slowly tell them the complete truth of the matter. Although what I'm about to say sounds unreasonable and hard to believe, I am not a person of this world. This world is just... I confessed everything to them. After hearing my words, the atmosphere in the room became so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Before the apocalypse, the male protagonists here were all the cream of the crop, talented, intelligent. Some even came from powerful political families that controlled a country's politics. Now I suddenly told them that actually, they were just characters in a novel created to entertain others. If it were me, I wouldn't be able to accept this either. But some things can't be hidden forever, especially during such urgent times as now. I had to tell them the complete truth even if I didn't want to. Even if they didn't want to believe it, they had no choice but to believe. They had no choice whether to believe or not. Vivian's face was drained of all color. She hugged herself tightly, her thin shoulders trembling. I quietly left the room, now only able to let them digest and accept everything on their own. Not long after I left, Yvonne also left that suffocating room. She sat down on a chair not far from me, silently beginning to cry. I leaned over to one side, quietly handing her tissues one by one to wipe her tears. Before long, a small mountain of used tissues had piled up on the table. She moved closer to me and asked, "Why aren't you comforting me?" I was stunned. "Are you waiting for me to comfort you?" She nodded. I spoke up. "If you're crying tears of joy because you barely escaped death, or crying out of shame after knowing the truth and remembering what you did in the past, I can find ways to comfort you. But if you're crying because your love for Dylan didn't work out due to being controlled by others, while in reality Dylan isn't someone worthy of love, then forget it." I shrugged. I don't like arguing with people who think about love all day long. Yvonne fell silent. I saw her smile very lightly and begin to chatter about old stories. "I've liked Dylan since I was very young, for no reason at all. I just caught a glimpse of him back then, and I could never forget him afterward. To have a chance to get closer to him, I gradually gave up my personal hobbies, switching from baking to business to keep up with his pace and study abroad with him. You probably don't know about my family background. My parents always valued sons over daughters. I grew up in such a family. To go abroad with Dylan, I had to save my pocket money for a very, very long time. I remember I was only 18 years old then. Going alone to a strange, distant kingdom. Once I stayed, it was 6 years. Actually, I think Villainess also very good. It's not surprising that Dylan likes her. I never thought about hurting her before either, but ever since I first saw her, I immediately felt uncomfortable. I mistakenly thought I was jealous. Yvonne paused to rest, her tone becoming somewhat vague as she continued. If everything is really as you said, if this is just a world in a novel, then my liking Dylan was also imposed on me by the author's character construction, wasn't it? Setting aside everything else, if there were no impositions at all, what kind of person would the real me be? Would I really love Dylan? Would I give up all my hobbies to chase after him? I didn't speak. Everything couldn't be predicted. There was no absolute certainty about anything. All my understanding of Yvonne came from descriptions of her in the original plot. But I believed that if there were no plot constraints, the real her wouldn't be like now. She would simply be herself, not Yvonne controlled by others to do one thing after another to advance the plot. So what would she be like if she weren't controlled? I was also curious. You can also go find out for yourself. What? Yvonne was stunned. I patted her head, raised my eyebrows, and smiled lightly to encourage her. It's not too late for anything. Why don't you search for yourself to see what kind of person Yvonne would really be? Do what you want to do, like what you like, hate what you hate. Don't you understand yourself best? In my world, there's a very famous saying, with no man in your heart, draw your sword and become a god. What do you think? Yvonne looked at me blankly, pursed her lips, her pupils trembling slightly. The evening breeze gently blew by, bringing cool air that refreshed people. She suddenly spoke up. Are you reciting poetry? Very good. Being clueless is still being clueless. I was embarrassed into silence. Just then, Hawk pushed the door and came in, his eyes glued to me, his hand tightly grasping mine. Mom, why hasn't Mom gone back to the room yet? Yvonne's eyes immediately became strange. No man in the heart, and you become a god yourself. What about this Hawk? He also knows how to choose his timing. How embarrassing. I coughed twice to hide my awkwardness. I said you shouldn't have men in your heart, not that there shouldn't be men by your side. Yvonne looked at me suspiciously. So? Look here, I've lost faith in men, but this doesn't mean there are no men beside me. After sending away the god who caused trouble, I quickly pulled Hawk to the balcony, whispering, why didn't you go back? This place is a human base. You staying here will make those stupid zombies think this place isn't scary at all and they can come live here. But Mom is here. Huh, who taught him to flirt like this? Who, come out here. After a long time, still not knowing how to respond, my face heated up. I looked up at the sky to prevent myself from bursting into excited laughter. Well then, this place isn't suitable for you to stay long either. If not, you should first. As Mom trying to drive me away, he gently interrupted me. My face turned pale with shock. Why is he suddenly like this? Shouldn't he be half stupid and half foolish like before? I missed his previously half stupid, half foolish appearance that was so charming But what he said was right. I definitely had to persuade him to leave the base. After all, the people in this base are all people who hate him enough to kill him in the future. Although the plot has now been smashed to pieces by me, I must prepare in advance for any variables that might occur. Anything could happen. I won't go. Hawk gripped my hand tightly. Mom has already abandoned me once. This time? Do you want to abandon me again? He looked so aggrieved that his eyes turned red as if tears were about to flow out. The teardrop mole at the corner of his eye made him even more attractive. I had no choice but to soften my heart and comfort him to calm down. While comforting him, the balcony door was suddenly pushed open. Vivian stood at the door, her eyes red as she looked at me. Can you give me that space ring so I can open a psychology clinic? Am I also just a puppet? Vivian looked dazedly into the distance. I shook my head. Of course not. Compared to everyone else, Vivian seems to not have a good foundation. However, she had enough ability and effort to get into top universities with excellent test scores through her own efforts. Unfortunately, in the final days, she belonged to the group of people who broke through the least destructive type of abilities. If it weren't for the male protagonists taking turns protecting her, she might have gotten a ticket to heaven long ago, let alone survive to this point. Vivian is exactly like the typical female protagonists in novels, weak, gentle, a white lotus. Her character is one of those criticized by many readers. Later, she'll also transform and become the leader of humanity after the apocalypse because of the author's favoritism. In the end, even though she doesn't have powerful abilities, after the disaster that nearly destroyed all of humanity, Vivian can still rise to stand in a position that everyone admires. Wait, what did I just mention? How could I forget this event? The final destructive event. The final tsunami that destroys the old world to rebuild a new one. The original plot described very clearly that just when all humanity began entering a period of stable development, an extremely large tsunami directly swept away the newly kindled hope. Almost all bases were submerged. Zombies took advantage of the water flooding into the bases to kill most of the survivors. Finally, after the tsunami disaster, unexpected natural disasters extinguished humanity's hope for recovery. The number of living people became pitifully small, while zombies were completely unaffected by the tsunami. It took several decades for humans to completely escape from this terrible catastrophe. I couldn't delay any longer. I quickly told Dylan's group about the tsunami. They were all people who had broken through to high-level abilities and had the capability to judge and command armies, so they naturally immediately realized the severity of this disaster. They quickly came up with some feasible strategies based on the situation I described to minimize the consequences. Because of resources and population distribution, most bases were built along the coast. It was precisely for this reason that when the tsunami hit, they had to suffer such terrible losses. The first plan was to relocate the base westward to higher plains. When we informed other bases about the tsunami, some large bases flatly refused, thinking we were delusional and not believing in this speculation. This was understandable. The large bases all had underwater monitoring equipment to measure danger levels. When all the data still showed normal readings, they naturally didn't believe what we said. We had no evidence to prove our words were correct, because according to the original plot, the tsunami also came on a day when all humanity was unprepared. Until this point, Vivian's space necklace finally played its role. Taking advantage of the infinite space inside the necklace, we didn't need to move too many cumbersome items, but could just pack all the raw materials into the space. This base, which everyone had worked hard to build for nearly a year and a half, the decision to relocate caused a lot of dissatisfaction. However, the prince had diligently gone to find his father, the base leader, to talk for an entire day. I don't know exactly what the father and son discussed, but the very next day, the base leader personally decided to relocate to a new place. The base leader, who is the prince's father, is one of the few people who broke through lightning-type abilities, so he naturally sits in the leadership chair. Everything seemed to be going in a good direction until we discovered more and more zombies appearing on the only road leading to the western plains. I knew that the plot's interference had begun. After Hawk left, the female zombie quickly became the leader of the zombie wave. Somehow she seemed to know all our plans, so she had arranged a large number of zombies to firmly block the path to the west, while simultaneously wiping out the advanced scouting team sent by the base. If that's the case, then like me, she's another different variable in this world. But opposite to me, my purpose is to smash the original plot, while her existence seems to be trying to ensure the plot develops smoothly according to plan. Zombies outnumber humans but are more stupid than humans, so we fell into a dilemma. But very quickly, the red-haired zombie, who had somehow changed from pink hair to red hair, brought dozens of high-level zombies to join forces with Hawk. Having something is better than nothing, the situation began to turn around. I gripped the red-haired zombie's hand tightly. Right from the first moment I saw you, I knew you'd be a lucky treasure for me. Red, the color of celebration, the color of strength. Oh, I love the color red. It seemed like it didn't quite understand what I was saying, but it could sense that I seemed to be praising it. The zombie smiled, showing its shiny white teeth. If the female zombie isn't eliminated, I don't know how many more unexpected dangers she'll create for us. We had already paid a very high price to force her to hide in a narrow cave. Haha, what good is being smart? What good does it do? Isn't she still just a zombie without abilities? I easily chopped off her head. Let's see if the author will transmigrate to save you or not. Haha. A hissing sound rang out. A stream of thick black sticky liquid flowed from the wound, condensing into a strange human shape in the air. I watched it warily. It was clearly just a mass of disgusting liquid that made people nauseous, but looking closer made people shudder with nausea. You are not a person of this world. Why do you want to interfere with this world? A hoarse voice came from its mouth. Their original purpose of creation was just some lowly, cheap, insignificant things. Their existence is just to entertain humans. Now I give you the right to choose. I can send you back to your world, as long as you don't interfere with anything in this world anymore. I turned around. What are you saying, cheap? Repeat that for me to hear. Are you saying you created this world? Then you're the cheap one, you bastard. You dare set conditions for me. You dare force me to follow the ridiculous rules of this world. Rules, my ass. You're just forcing everyone in this world to be controlled by you. Just because they went against your wishes time and again, you force all of humanity to go through an unprecedented natural disaster. Damn it. Don't you have eyes? Can't you see how much those people have struggled for human survival? Don't you see how much they've paid because of you? Yes, I admit this world had a wrong starting point from the beginning. But damn, who gave you the right to treat humans like weeds? You shameless bastard. After speaking, I immediately condensed an ice sword and smashed the thing in front of me to pieces. Then let me deal with you. You damn thing that doesn't even qualify as human, yet dares to want to control me. Do you know that humans have 7 emotions and 6 desires? Humans don't just have 7 emotions and 6 desires. They've existed on this land for thousands of years, and you dare consider them garbage with only base desires in their brains. The mass of slime in front of me screamed, and then turned into black mist and disappeared. Weights like Yvonne and me dragging them down. The zombie army got closer and closer to where we were standing. Suddenly, an extremely large earthquake appeared, splitting the ground in 2. Countless vines grew up from below, twisting to form a solid wall of vines separating us from the zombies. I was startled and turned around. Dylan, clutching his wound, stood there looking at the unconscious Yvonne on the ground with a complex expression. When he met my gaze, he was startled and surprised, a trace of confusion flashing in the depths of his eyes. Thanks to the vine wall blocking the zombie army, we quickly broke through the encirclement. As soon as we got out, we immediately met the base's support team, coming to help us retreat. The healers hurried forward to take the unconscious Yvonne, who had lost too much blood. Someone saw Dylan's wounds and wanted to treat him, but he refused. The other male protagonists were all stunned when they saw Hawk standing behind me. Even though Hawk now looked exactly like a normal human, there are still many differences between normal humans and zombies, so it was easy to recognize that Hawk had broken through to level 9 abilities and was a zombie. They looked at each other, pretending not to know anything, and remained silent. Yvonne had broken through to level 5 abilities. She had excellent qualities. After bravely surviving 2 extremely dangerous treatment sessions, she had finally almost completely recovered. After waking up, Yvonne saw Dylan's face standing by the bed and immediately used all her strength to sit up, walked over and slapped him hard across the face. I was standing far away but still heard a loud smack. It seemed like one slap wasn't enough to relieve her anger. She gritted her teeth with hateful eyes and used all her strength to slap him again. Dylan stood still and took it. Everyone watching the entire process of Yvonne's 2 loud slaps was immediately stunned. They couldn't understand why Yvonne, who just a few hours ago was still desperately hopeless because Dylan didn't reciprocate her feelings, could now hate him to the bone. I briefly and concisely recounted the process of how Yvonne got her injuries. That's impossible. Vivian Cross's face turned pale as she protested. Dylan couldn't do such a thing. Dylan, standing nearby, didn't speak up to refute. His face darkened as he knelt down, holding his head and pulling his hair in agony, explaining, "I don't know what was wrong with me. At that time, I felt like I was being controlled by someone. My mind was empty. The only thing I could think of at that moment was that I had to kill Yvonne. Clearly, Yvonne is my teammate, so how could I possibly, I really never intended to kill her. I don't know." He seemed to be thinking about something, his voice trembling as he looked up at me with regretful eyes. Last time was exactly the same. I didn't speak. This time, the twin brothers simultaneously changed their expressions. Obviously, they had thought of what possibility could occur. The atmosphere immediately froze. Dylan stubbornly refused treatment. For the greater good, I had already knocked him unconscious and handed him over to the healers. Joking aside, there's still a zombie army waiting for opportunities outside the base gate. At this point, still pretending to be arrogantly remorseful, what the hell? He's not afraid to act up, but I am afraid. The rescue team finally returned to the base. I pondered deeply. After waiting for them to recover considerably, I gathered them together. Looking at their confused expressions, I hesitated for a long time before deciding to slowly tell them the complete truth. Although what I'm about to say sounds unreasonable and hard to believe, I am not a person of this world. This world is just... I confessed everything to them. After hearing my words, the atmosphere in the room became so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Before the apocalypse, the male protagonists here were all the cream of the crop, talented, intelligent, some even came from powerful political families that controlled a country's politics. Now I suddenly told them that actually, they were just characters in a novel created to entertain others. If it were me, I wouldn't be able to accept this either. But some things can't be hidden forever, especially during such urgent times as now. I had to tell them the complete truth even if I didn't want to. Even if they didn't want to believe it, they had no choice but to believe. They had no choice whether to believe or not. Vivian Cross's face was drained of all color. She hugged herself tightly, her thin shoulders trembling. I quietly left the room, now only able to let them digest and accept everything on their own. Not long after I left, Yvonne also left that suffocating room. She sat down on a chair not far from me, silently beginning to cry. I leaned over to one side, quietly handing her tissues one by one to wipe her tears. Before long, a small mountain of used tissues had piled up on the table. She moved closer to me and asked, "Why aren't you comforting me?" I was stunned. "Are you waiting for me to comfort you?" She nodded. I spoke up. "If you're crying tears of joy because you barely escaped death, or crying out of shame after knowing the truth and remembering what you did in the past, I can find ways to comfort you. But if you're crying because your love for Dylan didn't work out due to being controlled by others, while in reality Dylan isn't someone worthy of love, then forget it." I shrugged. I don't like arguing with people who think about love all day long. Yvonne fell silent. I saw her smile very lightly and begin to chatter about old stories. "I've liked Dylan since I was very young, for no reason at all. I just caught a glimpse of him back then, and I could never forget him afterward. To have a chance to get closer to him, I gradually gave up my personal hobbies, switching from baking to business to keep up with his pace and study abroad with him. You probably don't know about my family background. My parents always valued sons over daughters. I grew up in such a family. To go abroad with Dylan, I had to save my pocket money for a very, very long time. I remember I was only 18 years old then, going alone to a strange, distant kingdom. Once I stayed, it was 6 years. Actually, I think Vivianne's also very good. It's not surprising that Dylan likes her. I never thought about hurting her before either. But ever since I first saw her, I immediately felt uncomfortable. I mistakenly thought I was jealous. Yvonne paused to rest, her tone becoming somewhat vague as she continued. "If everything is really as you said, if this is just a world in a novel, then my liking Dylan was also imposed on me by the author's character construction, wasn't it? Setting aside everything else, if there were no impositions at all, what kind of person would the real me be? Would I really love Dylan? Would I give up all my hobbies to chase after him?" I didn't speak. Everything couldn't be predicted. There was no absolute certainty about anything. All my understanding of Yvonne came from descriptions of her in the original plot. But I believed that if there were no plot constraints, the real her wouldn't be like now. She would simply be herself, not an Yvonne controlled by others to do one thing after another to advance the plot. So what would she be like if she weren't controlled? I was also curious. You can also go find out for yourself. What? Yvonne was stunned. I patted her head, raised my eyebrows, and smiled lightly to encourage her. "It's not too late for anything. Why don't you search for yourself to see what kind of person Yvonne would really be? Do what you want to do, like what you like, hate what you hate. Don't you understand yourself best? In my world, there's a very famous saying, 'With no man in your heart, draw your sword and become a god.' What do you think?" Yvonne looked at me blankly, pursed her lips, her pupils trembling slightly. The evening breeze gently blew by, bringing cool air that refreshed people. She suddenly spoke up. "Are you reciting poetry? Very good." being clueless is still being clueless. I was embarrassed into silence. Just then, Hawk pushed the door and came in, his eyes glued to me, his hand tightly grasping mine. Mom, why hasn't Mom gone back to the room yet? Yvonne's eyes immediately became strange. No man in the heart, and you become a god yourself. What about this Hawk? He also knows how to choose his timing. How embarrassing. I coughed twice to hide my awkwardness. I said you shouldn't have men in your heart. Not that there shouldn't be men by your side. Yvonne looked at me suspiciously. So what? Look here, I've lost faith in men. But this doesn't mean there are no men beside me. After sending away the god who caused trouble, I quickly pulled Hawk to the balcony, whispering, "Why didn't you go back? This place is a human base. You staying here will make those stupid zombies think this place isn't scary at all and they can come live here. But Mom is here." Huh? Who taught him to flirt like this? Who? Come out here. After a long time, still not knowing how to respond, my face heated up. I looked up at the sky to prevent myself from bursting into excited laughter. Well then, this place isn't suitable for you to stay long either. If not, you should first. Is Mom trying to drive me away? He gently interrupted me. My face turned pale with shock. Why is he suddenly like this? Shouldn't he be half stupid and half foolish like before? I missed his previously half stupid, half foolish appearance. That was so charming. But what he said was right. I definitely had to persuade him to leave the base. After all, the people in this base are all people who hate him enough to kill him in the future. Although the plot has now been smashed to pieces by me, I must prepare in advance for any variables that might occur. Anything could happen. I won't go. Hawk gripped my hand tightly. Mom has already abandoned me once. This time. Do you want to abandon me again? He looked so aggrieved that his eyes turned red as if tears were about to flow out. The teardrop mole at the corner of his eye made him even more attractive. I had no choice but to soften my heart and comfort him to calm down. While comforting him, the balcony door was suddenly pushed open. Vivian stood at the door, her eyes red as she looked at me. Can you give me that space ring so I can open a psychology clinic? Am I also just a puppet? Vivian looked dazedly into the distance. I shook my head. Of course not. Compared to everyone else, Vivian seems to not have a good foundation. However, she had enough ability and effort to get into top universities with excellent test scores through her own efforts. Unfortunately, in the final days, she belonged to the group of people who broke through the least destructive type of abilities. If it weren't for the male protagonists taking turns protecting her, she might have gotten a ticket to heaven long ago, let alone survive to this point. Vivian is exactly like the typical female protagonists in novels: weak, gentle, a white lotus. Her character is one of those criticized by many readers. Later, she'll also transform and become the leader of humanity after the apocalypse because of the author's favoritism. In the end, even though she doesn't have powerful abilities, after the disaster that nearly destroyed all of humanity, Vivian can still rise to stand in a position that everyone admires. To survive to this point, Vivian is exactly like the typical female protagonists in novels: weak, gentle, a white lotus. Her character is one of those most criticized by readers, but later she'll also transform and become the leader of humanity after the apocalypse days because of the author's favoritism. In the end, even though she doesn't have powerful abilities, after the disaster that destroyed almost all of humanity, Vivian can still rise to stand in a position that everyone admires. Wait, what did I just mention? How could I forget this destructive event, the final tsunami that destroys the old world to rebuild a new one? The original plot described very clearly that just when all humanity began entering a period of stable development, an extremely large tsunami directly swept away the newly kindled hope. Almost all bases were submerged. Zombies took advantage of the water flooding into the bases to kill most of the survivors. Finally, after the tsunami, the unexpected natural disaster extinguished humanity's hope for recovery. The number of living people became pitifully small, while zombies were completely unaffected by the tsunami. It took several decades for humans to completely escape from this terrible catastrophe. I couldn't delay any longer. I quickly told Dylan's group about the tsunami. They were all people who had broken through to high-level abilities and had the capability to judge and command armies, so they naturally immediately realized the severity of this disaster. They quickly came up with some feasible strategies based on the situation I described to minimize the consequences. Because of resources and population distribution, most bases were built along the coast. It was precisely for this reason that when the tsunami hit, they had to suffer such terrible losses. The first plan was to relocate the base westward to higher plains. When we informed other bases about the tsunami, some large bases flatly refused, thinking we were delusional and not believing in this speculation. This was understandable. The large bases all had underwater monitoring equipment to measure danger levels. When all the data still showed normal readings, they naturally didn't believe what we said. We had no evidence to prove our words were correct because according to the original plot, the tsunami also came on a day when all humanity was unprepared. Until this point, Vivian Cross's space necklace finally played its role. Taking advantage of the infinite space inside the necklace, we didn't need to move too many cumbersome items, but could just pack all the raw materials into the space. This base, which everyone had worked hard to build for nearly a year and a half, the decision to relocate caused a lot of dissatisfaction. However, Prince Stone had diligently gone to find his father, the base leader, to talk for an entire day. I don't know exactly what the father and son discussed, but the very next day, the base leader personally decided to relocate to a new place. The base leader, who is Prince's father, is one of the few people who broke through lightning-type abilities, so he naturally sits in the leadership chair. Everything seemed to be going in a good direction until we discovered more and more zombies appearing on the only road leading to the Western Plains. I knew that the plot's interference had begun. After Hawk left, the female zombie quickly became the leader of the zombie wave. Somehow, she seemed to know all our plans, so she had arranged a large number of zombies to firmly block the path to the west, while simultaneously wiping out the advanced scouting teams sent by the base. If that's the case, then like me, she's another different variable in this world. But opposite to me, my purpose is to smash the original plot, while her existence seems to be trying to ensure the plot develops smoothly according to plan. Zombies outnumber humans but are more stupid than humans, so we fell into a dilemma. But very quickly, the zombie that had somehow changed from pink hair to red hair brought dozens of high-level zombies to join forces with Hawk. Having something is better than nothing, the situation began to turn around. I gripped the red-haired zombie's hand tightly. Right from the first moment I saw you, I knew you'd be a lucky treasure for me. Red, the color of celebration, the color of strength. Oh, I love the color red. It seemed like it didn't quite understand what I was saying, but it could sense that I seemed to be praising it. The zombie smiled, showing its shiny white teeth. If the female zombie isn't eliminated, I don't know how many more unexpected dangers she'll create for us. We had already paid a very high price to force her to hide in a narrow cave. Haha, what good is being smart? What good does it do? Isn't she still just a zombie without abilities? I easily chopped off her head. Let's see if the author will transmigrate to save you or not. Ha! A hissing sound rang out. A stream of thick, black, sticky liquid flowed from the wound, condensing into a strange human shape in the air. I watched it warily. It was clearly just a mass of disgusting liquid that made people nauseous, but looking closer made people shudder with nausea. You are not a person of this world. Why do you want to interfere with this world? A hoarse voice came from its mouth. Their original purpose of creation was just some lowly, cheap, insignificant things. Their existence is just to entertain humans. Now I give you the right to choose. I can send you back to your world, as long as you don't interfere with anything in this world anymore. I turned around. What are you saying, cheap? Repeat that for me to hear. Are you saying you created this world? Then you're the cheap one, you bastard? You dare set conditions for me. You dare force me to follow the ridiculous rules of this world. Rules, my ass. You're just forcing everyone in this world to be controlled by you. Just because they went against your wishes time and again, you force all of humanity to go through an unprecedented natural disaster. Damn it, don't you have eyes? Can't you see how much those people have struggled for human survival? Don't you see how much they've paid because of you? Yes, I admit this world had a wrong starting point from the beginning, but damn, who gave you the right to treat humans like weeds? You shameless bastard. After speaking, I immediately condensed an ice sword and smashed the thing in front of me to pieces. Then let me deal with you. You damn thing that doesn't even qualify as human, yet dares to want to control me. Do you know that humans have 7 emotions and 6 desires? Humans don't just have 7 emotions and 6 desires, they've existed on this land for thousands of years, and you dare consider them garbage, with only base desires in their brains. The massive slime in front of me screamed, and then turned into black mist and disappeared. After confirming that this female zombie was completely dead, I breathed a sigh of relief, turned around and was about to leave. Vivian and the others had been quietly standing behind me for who knows how long. After a while, they slowly regained their composure and gathered to discuss the next plan with me, without any obstruction at all. If it weren't for their voices being choked up as if they were about to cry, I would have thought it was real. In the past, every time I read novels and saw a protagonist always trying their best to change their own destiny, wanting to single-handedly fight against the entire sky, I could never understand why there would be such stubborn and foolish people in the world. How could the power of an ordinary person possibly defeat a predetermined fate? But now I understand. When you truly see the injustice of a world from your own perspective, you won't be able to accept that injustice. It turns out I was the truly stubborn donkey. After the female zombie's death, the plot continued to change dramatically. The tide rose several times higher than the shoreline, awakening the sea monsters that had been sleeping drunkenly in the deep ocean. These were things that had never appeared in the original plot. Some bases that stubbornly stayed by the seaside were attacked by sea monsters, resulting in heavy casualties. The appearance of sea monsters was also like an alarm bell. Many large bases fell one after another. What was difficult was that the sea monster attacks usually came without warning. Not only humans, but zombies also suffered severe impacts. Although zombies suffered losses no less than humans, this wasn't exactly good news either. From these signs, the plot wasn't simply adjusting anymore. It seemed like this world had truly been abandoned because too many variables had occurred. What followed confirmed that my speculation was correct. The sea monsters flooding inland became increasingly numerous due to rapidly rising sea levels. At this time, half of the zombies that had originally awakened high-level abilities lost their sanity, leaving only the instinct to attack humans. In front were zombies, behind were sea monsters, and the tsunami hung over our heads like sharp blades, just waiting to fall and chop up this world. Humanity seemed to be facing an unprecedented crisis. A very large base on the coast had not relocated, becoming a shelter for women and children who managed to evacuate in time. They stayed behind to protect the base and hold back the sea monsters. They did not retreat even at the final dangerous moment of the battle. The result was that all of them died in the mouths of the sea monsters. Before dying, those with abilities used all their power to strengthen the protective wall of the base, defending the final line of defense along the coastline. As soon as our base received the news, we immediately sent a military unit there for support. Our army was divided into 2 groups. Dylan commanded the group protecting the base while I led people to rescue the survivors inside the base. Before leaving, Dylan specifically came to meet with me privately, his face tense with strain. Ever since learning she was the female protagonist in the story, Vivian had been avoiding all meetings with the male protagonists. She wanted to prove her own abilities, but couldn't break free from the tangled thoughts she had created herself. The one who tied the bell must untie it. She could only clear her own thoughts and step out by herself. I love Vivian. Dylan looked at me and smiled bitterly. I know my feelings clearly aren't due to plot coercion. For no reason at all, I love her because she is who she is. That's all. I made sounds for courtesy. Before I met her, I lived a very dissolute life. I pursed my lips and made an sound. It sounds quite romantic. But actually you're no different from a rotten playboy. He looked at me questioningly. It's nothing, I'm just praising you for being very devoted. Previously, I didn't care about my own desires. If I felt the need for release, I'd just find some girl to take care of it myself. There were many women who actively sought me out for that reason. I didn't even bother with them until I met Vivian. I nodded. I understand. Standard novel male protagonists are always arrogant and lost in a forest of flowers. After meeting the female protagonist, the prodigal son turns back and keeps what's below his belly button in check. It sounds nice when you say it, but why doesn't it sound offensive? Don't elevate yourself too high and mighty. Even without the plot, without coercion, you actually wanted to try it yourself too. If you really wanted to refuse, wouldn't there be a reason? Dylan fell silent for a moment, then smiled bitterly. You're right. The advance team was ready, and it was time for Dylan to leave. He stood up, glancing at the warm, bright room where Vivian was in the distance. According to you, what will the future of this world be like? I thought about his question, hesitating before answering him. Everything will be fine. Actually, I don't know. I don't know what the future will hold. The direction of this world has completely deviated from its original trajectory. The future I knew is no longer the future. Dylan smiled, incidentally, before leaving. He turned back and looked at me seriously. I still owe you an apology. I'm sorry for everything that happened before. I smiled and nodded, accepting his belated apology. The next day, the small unit led by Dylan hurried to the coastal base to protect us so we could evacuate in time. The unit had to pay too high a price. They used all their abilities to protect us and give us enough time. Vivian collapsed crying when she heard the news of Dylan's death. I hadn't even had a clear conversation with him yet. That day, he came to find me. I didn't even open the door. I hadn't really said goodbye to him yet. But in this world, there's no medicine for regret. After Dylan's death, for the first time I questioned my own decisions. Was I really right to make everything turn out like this? Dylan should have had a beautiful life ahead, but he had to end his life because of my appearance. I fell into confusion, but I didn't expect Vivian to recover her original state before I did. Her abilities had broken through to level 4. On the second day after Dylan's death, Vivian had wounded herself up again, using her abilities to heal everyone's wounds. This world was created by people from your world to satisfy their own desires. They look at the people here as no different from weeds, like a bunch of monsters with only desires in their heads. Her eyes were red and swollen, tears flowing like rain, but she stubbornly smiled. But look, hasn't everything changed now? I didn't speak. That damn plot, everything must end. Actually, it's not that there's no way out. We still have one final bloody path. The number of sea monsters seems endless. As time passed, the sea monsters that appeared were increasingly higher level. Sea levels rose, and most of the plains were submerged. But the most dangerous tsunami still hadn't slowly arrived yet. All of humanity seemed to have reached the brink of extinction. I have a proposal. Late at night, Yvonne came to my room. She had thought of a final method, building an underground shelter. Most people with metal abilities and construction skills had to participate to build an underground shelter in a short time. The enormous workload required them to continuously use their abilities. Whenever someone's energy was exhausted, people with healing abilities would immediately appear to help them recover quickly so they could continue construction. A large number of ability users had to build the underground shelter, leading to a severe shortage of the combat army fighting sea beasts and zombies prowling outside like tigers stalking prey. We could only do our best to resist. The casualties were so numerous they couldn't be counted. To protect the southern defensive wall, Prince was bitten in half by a sea monster. He had struggled to hold on until Vivian could run over, whispering a few words in her ear before taking his last breath. Vivian tremblingly kept watch beside Prince's body for a long time. The twin brothers were also seriously injured. One was blinded, the other had his arteries severed by sharp spines. Vivian used all her abilities to save him, but because her abilities had been overused for too long, she could only silently watch his pulse grow weaker and weaker until it stopped beating. When he died, there was still a smile on his lips. Vivian used a towel to carefully clean the blood from his face, too exhausted to even have the strength to cry. Hawk and I, along with the remaining zombie group, guarded the southeast of the base. Fortunately, Hawk and his zombie group were temporarily safe. The bad news was that if a level 9 zombie appeared in the zombie wave outside, our base would fall because we couldn't resist it. Sea monsters crawling ashore became increasingly numerous and higher level. A high-level whale and a giant black sea monster used their massive bodies to slam hard against the wall, causing it to crack immediately. I could only temporarily fill the cracks with thick ice and wait for metal ability users to come repair it. The whale's spine-covered tail came shooting toward me. Before I could react, a powerful force pushed me several meters away. The sound of flesh being torn apart rang out. I fell to the ground and turned around in disbelief. The red-haired zombie that used to cook for me and smile at me had been brutally pierced by the spines on the whale's tail. It quietly looked at me, then a moment later flew into the monster's mouth and was torn to pieces. My ears rang, my whole body trembled as I gritted my teeth and stood up. Dylan, the twin brothers, Prince, Red the zombie, I didn't even know its name, all had died because of my appearance. I numbly swung the ice sword in my hand, slaughtering the sea monsters. Blood continuously splattered on my sword. I dared not stop even for a second. I was afraid that the moment I stopped, regret would crush my heart immediately. In just 7 days, countless ability users had collapsed from exhaustion without being treated in time. The underground shelter was basically completed. Everyone had tried their best to create a nearly perfect underground shelter. After all, the ability users would gradually recover. However, this shelter couldn't accommodate all the current survivors. Half of them would have to die in the coming tsunami. The shelter prioritized young people, women and children, as they were the future of the world. Next were high-level metal ability users and construction ability users. Under Marcus Stone's leadership, the underground shelter would be gradually improved until the tide receded and the plains appeared again. When there was no longer any appearance on the surface, the zombies and sea monsters would eliminate each other. The ability users remaining on the surface were based on voluntary spirit. After all, the number of ability users who stayed was double what we had originally planned. After another round of screening, some ability users were sent to the underground shelter. Until now, there was only 1 day left before the tsunami occurred. Vivian and I both chose to stay on the surface, even though both of us fully met the conditions to enter the underground shelter. 1 hour before the tsunami occurred, all ability users gathered in front of the base. It was late at night, the moon hung high in the sky. The blue sea sparkled with light, unusually calm. I knew this was exactly the last moment of peace for this earth. In just 1 hour, everything would end. It might be 1 year later, it might be 10 years later, it might take 100 years, it no longer mattered. The remaining survivors in the underground shelter would one day set foot on this land again. When that time comes, this earth will be reborn once more. Hawk had exhausted too much energy recently. He closed his eyes and quietly leaned against my shoulder. Yvonne began chattering in my ear. She asked me if there was anything I really wanted to do but hadn't been able to do yet. Me. I thought for a moment. There are too many things I want to do. If I had to choose one thing I want to do most, I couldn't choose for a while. I whispered to her, I really like baking. I nodded. So if I had the chance, I want to open a coffee shop and hire waitstaff. The brainless female supporting character, to the very end, is still illogical like this. What do these two things have to do with each other? Egg tarts. I make them deliciously. So how does that relate to anything? I make pretty good coffee, but I'm too lazy to grind coffee beans myself. What does that have to do with waitstaff? If I have the chance, you must try the egg tarts I make. So forget it, just be happy yourself. Vivian couldn't help but laugh out loud, but it couldn't ease our melancholy atmosphere. I always felt guilty toward her. Not just toward her, but also toward Dylan, the twin brothers, Prince, and even Hawk. They should have had a bright future, at least better than now, but everyone ended up on this path because of me. Perhaps Vivian saw my self-blame. She smiled gently. Don't blame yourself. This was all of our choice. Breaking free from the plot's constraints, being able to choose what we really want to do. Nothing about this is bad. When we all became independent individuals. She looked at me tenderly. Thank you, Quinn. I hope you'll always be happy and safe in your world. I was stunned. What do you mean your world? My head suddenly ached. My whole body stiffened and couldn't move. Hawk slowly raised his head from my shoulder, his curved eyes smiling at me. Yvonne pursed her lips and winked playfully at me, looking cunning as if she had achieved her wish. Vivian slowly took off the space necklace from around her neck. The necklace in Vivian's hand emitted a dim light. Inside this necklace was a hidden portal connected to another world. That was exactly your world, Quinn. My heart pounded as if it wanted to jump out of my chest. The portal needs enough energy to open. Thank you, Quinn. You've done so much for this world already. It's time for you to go home. Wait a minute. I struggled desperately but couldn't break free from Hawk's control ability. A loud rumbling sound came from under the sea. The tsunami was beginning to approach. All the ability users were ready to face this natural disaster. Even so, Yvonne still smiled and waved goodbye to me. Vivian bit her lip to keep from crying, hugging the space necklace tightly. At the bottom of her eyes appeared a trace of relief that had never been there before. Who needs you people to decide for me? Tears kept flowing down. Something soft and cold touched my cheek. The silver-haired young man gently stroked my face, smiling tenderly. Goodbye, Quinn. Quinn, wake up quickly. I won't wake up. My roommate Lily looked at me in shock and worry, reaching out to touch my forehead. You scared me to death. I thought you were sick. Why did you sleep so soundly today? You slept through the entire class. I was dizzy, my head heavy, always feeling like I had forgotten something very important, but when I tried hard to remember, I couldn't recall anything. Come on, let's go quickly. Everyone's already gone to the cafeteria. There definitely won't be anything left if we're late. What if we don't have anything to eat? Who? Hey you, what's wrong? Why are you crying? I touched the tears on my face, only then realizing I had been crying without knowing when. Oh, maybe I'm crying because I'm too hungry. Lily was surprised and dragged me out of the classroom. The July sky was burning hot. The hot wind made people feel unbearably stuffy. Lily kept fanning herself with her hand while chattering to me. Oh right. Do you remember that trashy novel we read together a few days ago? What trashy novel? You're still pretending to be innocent. What the hell, it's the novel you recommended to me. Did you forget? I was speechless, unable to say anything. Recently, that book has been completed by the author. The plot is extremely strange. At first, it was just an ordinary trashy romance novel. I don't know how it turned into an excellent post-apocalyptic novel, but all the main characters died miserably. My head ached again. I grabbed Lily's hand tightly. How did it end? The ending. She fell silent, trying to remember. I don't remember very clearly. It seems like they built an underground shelter. A long time later, the people in the shelter returned to the surface. Earth was reborn once again. After that, I didn't read anymore. Since none of the main characters survived, I was too lazy to read. I don't know why I breathed a sigh of relief, but my heart ached. Why do I feel like you're so strange today? You feel like you've become a different person. Lily looked at me suspiciously. Have you thought about what to eat for lunch? Egg tarts. I blurted out, surprising even myself. Wait, what? We're eating egg tarts for lunch. Ah, that's right. I remember now. I heard there's a newly opened coffee shop outside school. The owner even hired waitstaff. It seems like they're still having a discount on everything there. Do you want to go take a look? The egg tarts at that shop seemed quite famous. I was dazed and before I knew it, was dragged upstairs by Lily. The coffee shop Lily mentioned was decorated very warmly. A breeze blew through the corridor, making my bangs flutter. Suddenly, another person's reflection appeared on the glass door. I was still stunned when that person had already patted my shoulder gently. I don't know why my heart trembled. I slowly turned around. It seemed like that person was looking at me and smiling. Hello? Would you like to try the egg tarts I made? Outside Story 1. My mother told me that the sky outside is very clear. The sky in my eyes is endless clouds. I've never seen the real sky. What I've always seen is the sky through simulation screens. White indicating when the sun rises, when the sun sets, when it's day, when it's night. Summer comes but it's not hot. Winter comes but it's not cold. I grew up in a place called an underground shelter. This is the 17th year since the last day of the historical tsunami, and also the 15th year of the Rebirth Project. When I was 3 years old, my mother brought me into this underground shelter. I asked my mother why Dad didn't come with us. My mother told me that my dad had gone to a very far place to preserve life for many people. I asked my mother where that very far place was, and whether Dad would come back to us. My mother said that Dad was always by our side, always like that, but I had waited for so many years and had never once met Dad. Most of the children living in the underground shelter like me awakened abilities when they started reaching 6 or 7 years old. Some people said that if you don't awaken abilities around that age, then by age 10, the possibility of awakening abilities would decrease greatly, even to 0. But I was different from everyone else. When I had just turned 14, I suddenly awakened high-level metal abilities, equivalent to Marcus Stone, the strongest person in the underground shelter, up to the present day. The very next day, I was personally brought by Marcus to the training camp for teaching and guidance. Marcus treated me like a teacher, like a father, sparing no effort to pass on everything he knew to me. But I always had a strange feeling I couldn't explain. I felt Marcus was very eager when he found me. exactly like a soldier fighting alone who one day finds a source of life. I knew he wanted to train me to become a worthy successor, then he would leave. Marcus was the person with the highest status and power in this underground shelter. I didn't understand why he hated life here so much and wanted to leave so badly. Until one day I saw him standing alone by the window on a huge simulation screen showing a starry sky. He stood quietly gazing at that sky, yet I saw that those stars didn't reach the bottom of his eyes at all. Only then did I have an answer to my question. It turned out he was always lonely. At the training camp, I met a girl and fell in love with her. In my eyes, she was a very lovely person with cheeks that always blushed when she smiled. Her big round eyes ruled over my heart. One day I gathered all my courage to confess to her, but she immediately rejected me. I asked her why. She said she wanted to see the real sky. I went to Marcus to confide about my heartbreak. That little girl is smart, ambitious, and has character. He smiled kindly at me after hearing about my story. So what do you plan to do? I nodded. I like her like this. How could I give up just because she rejected me? But Marcus shook his head. You shouldn't bother that little girl anymore. She's already rejected you. I was shocked. I had never stood from her perspective to think about whether continuing would bother her. In my subconscious, I had never intended to respect her thoughts, even when she was the person I liked. Clearly, I should treat everyone's feelings fairly. So what were my thoughts? Getting rejected is fine. She just temporarily hasn't felt my feelings yet. I'll continue pursuing her. One day she'll be moved by my efforts. I'm too perfect. She'll have to regret it eventually. All my thoughts were based on my personal opinions, while I deliberately ignored the thoughts and feelings of the person I liked. You must learn to respect others' wishes, not just those of the opposite sex. Remember, what you want is just what you think. That's all. On my 18th birthday, Marcus brought me to a room commemorating the heroes who sacrificed their lives for us. Today, you must always remember that we have the opportunity to stand here today because all these people paid the price with their flesh and blood. We live, but not just for ourselves alone. He stood looking at those flickering names there for a long time. At the very top of the list were several names marked in gold, solemn and shiny, as if someone came here every day to clean off the dust. Marcus, who are they? My friends and my lover. Then Marcus led me to the dangerous area under strict guard at the outer edge of the underground shelter. The boundary wall was covered by fog. Marcus brought me to the outermost layer of fog and spoke up. It took 9 days from the idea to completion. Countless ability users collapsed from exhaustion. They could only do their best to build a complete shelter framework. The rest of the shelter was completed by qualified ability users who went into the shelter. These were all famous stories in the underground shelter that I had heard before. I didn't know what Marcus meant by telling me these words. Many ability users exhausted their energy without being treated in time, so they died. This was the announcement given to the entire shelter, but the reality wasn't like that. I was surprised. The thick fog also gradually dispersed. On the day the shelter framework was successfully built, our research team discovered that the defensive wall condensed from abilities wasn't enough to withstand the destruction caused by the tsunami. But the underground shelter was humanity's last hope. We couldn't allow it to be destroyed. Marcus's eyes blazed for a long time. For a long time, we couldn't find any solution until someone discovered that the completely metallic bodies of ability users were harder than any material on this earth. You surely know clearly how powerful the bodies of people who have broken through abilities are. So it wasn't that they died from energy exhaustion, they voluntarily sacrificed themselves in exchange for all humanity's hope. The last layer of fog finally dissipated. The wall blocking the outside world from the underground shelter, hidden for many years, appeared before my eyes. When I could see clearly what was in front of me, my throat felt like something was blocking it, and tears fell. The wall was built by so many people, countless people beyond counting. Each inch of their bodies radiated metallic light, layer upon layer. From afar, it looked exactly like an ordinary metal wall. The cracks created by the tsunami had been sealed with their very hands. A tall, thin figure in the middle leaned against this cracked wall, but his eyes fell on the underground shelter as if always watching something from afar. I couldn't see his face clearly, but I could feel my heart trembling uncontrollably. Who is he? Why do I have such a strange feeling? Thane, that is your father. I suddenly remembered what my mother said when I was little. My mother said that father was always by our side. In the 20th year of the Rebirth Project, our underground shelter sent an advance team back to the surface. This advance team was led by Marcus. The girl I liked and I were also in the team. Before the underground shelter was sealed, the voluntary ability users remaining on the surface had chosen the most heroic method to die together with the zombie wave and sea monsters. But we weren't sure whether the zombies and sea monsters had truly been completely eliminated. More importantly, the plains outside had been submerged by the tsunami, so the underground shelter was currently very deep compared to sea level. The difficulty increased further. When our entire group set foot on the surface, the first thing I saw was a very blue sky. That was the real sky. The girl I liked had said that. In more than 20 years since the natural disaster that destroyed humanity, it turned out this Earth hadn't become as desolate as we had imagined. Our entire team walked onto the vast grassland. The wind blew through the forest, making rustling sounds. Different from our excitement, Marcus silently took in all the scenery before his eyes, then suddenly burst into tears. This world has been completely abandoned, but precisely because it was abandoned, we now have the opportunity to shine our own light. This Earth will have a completely new future. I didn't understand what the world being abandoned, in Marcus's words, meant. I only knew that on the second day after returning from the surface, Marcus had closed his eyes forever in the peaceful night. Since the apocalypse, human lifespan had increased greatly due to the mutations of ability users, and more people were breaking through healing abilities. Marcus was only in his 40s, still far from the age when he should leave this life. His death caused panic throughout the entire underground shelter. Some even suspected that there was a virus on the surface that even someone as healthy as Marcus couldn't overcome. But I understood it wasn't like that. He had lost his family, lost his friends, lost even his lover. He had walked alone in this world for a long time because of us, carrying the hope of all our futures. He had waited until humanity found new hope, until the water receded from the plains, until the path to a bright future was no longer vague and hopeless. He had finally waited for this day, the day when he could put everything down and leave. He no longer had anything he regretted or wanted to do in this world, so he chose to go to another world. It seemed like there, all the people he loved were waiting for him. I personally carved Marcus's name in gold at the top of the list. Next to him were the names Vivian Cross, Quinn, Dylan, Yvonne, Jake Chen, Ryan Chen, and Connor Hall. That day I accidentally found a name carved on the back of the memorial. The person at the top was carved with the name Hawk. Some positions below had the exact names of each person carved. Some special positions were left blank as if waiting for someone to fill them. I suddenly remembered a story that wasn't widely spread in the underground shelter. They said that Marcus and his friends had colluded with zombies, so they wouldn't let him become the leader. Some people said that the zombies had contributed greatly to the base. Without the zombies, the underground shelter couldn't have existed. There were many rumors swirling around, but with his own abilities, Marcus had suppressed all doubts. When the memorial was built, the names of those zombies weren't allowed to appear there. The initial arguments gradually subsided. It turned out Marcus had quietly placed them here. I carefully wiped clean every speck of dust from those names, then quietly left. In the 25th year of the Rebirth Project, all humans in the underground shelter once again set foot on the surface. The Rebirth Project was declared successful. Humanity had truly entered a new era. Outside Story 2, I got close to a female student in the school's literature club. After Quinn discovered this, she immediately cornered that female student in the bathroom and scolded her. The female student, who was wronged, came to me crying and complaining. When I found Quinn, she was sitting on the rooftop railing, quietly staring intently at the playground. Bothering other people again. She nodded. "What are you looking at?" She pointed at a figure on the playground. "Dylan. You know, I really like that person. There was no love between me and Quinn." After the engagement between the Taylor and Shaw families was decided, I had met with her privately. She had told me straight out, "I don't like men like you. I didn't like them before, and I won't like them in the future. I know you feel the same way about me. Currently, I can't fight to cancel this engagement. So let's just pretend on the surface. You go your way, I'll go mine. River water doesn't touch well water. Let's decide on that." She and I followed the rules we had agreed upon, living harmoniously together in a strange state. Because of the engagement between the Taylor and Shaw families, we would occasionally arrange to meet, avoiding suspicion from the adults in our families. On her birthday, I would prepare a really grand birthday party for her. When other girls appeared around me, she would pretend to be jealous and declare her territory as if she were a real girlfriend. But she also had a boy she liked. We met and made everything clear. That boy knew the complications in our relationship clearly, and he truly loved her. Quinn told me that boy had never actually said he loved her, but his love for her was very intense. He silently waited, silently compromised. Their relationship was very good. I was jealous of them. But I often helped them hide from our parents to give them more private space. I had thought our lives would always be like this. I had a little girlfriend in the same class. After being called away by Quinn during break time, I didn't see either of them return for a long time. I found it strange and hurried to look for Quinn. When I found her, she was pressing that other girl's head into a basin of water. She was struggling desperately, her fingernails digging deep into Quinn's arm. I was shocked and terrified, rushing over to pull Quinn away. Previously, she only did everything for people to see, but this time it had clearly changed. The other girl collapsed on the ground, staring at us with wide eyes. "Quinn, what the hell are you doing?" She trembled and came back to herself as if suddenly regaining consciousness. Her eyes showed confusion and panic. I don't know. In the end, that girl didn't encounter anything too serious. The Taylor family also silenced her to suppress this matter. From that day on, Quinn's mood was always bad. Fortunately, she always had that boy by her side. I don't know why, but from then on, the two of them always tried to avoid me. One day they suddenly disappeared without a clear reason. I sent people to investigate and found out that the boy had been in a very serious car accident. Quinn was staying in the hospital day and night taking care of him. The boy stayed in the ICU for observation for a week before being transferred to a regular ward for care after getting through the critical period. Unfortunately, their relationship was discovered by the Taylor family. Quinn was dragged back home and beaten severely, then locked up. No matter how much she cried and begged to see that boy again, she wasn't allowed to. A month later, Quinn returned to school. The first thing she did when she came to school was drag my dancing girlfriend at the time into the practice room and beat her until my girlfriend's leg was broken. Completely losing hope for that year's art exam, before stopping. "She's crazy." I looked down coldly at Quinn, but she just leaned against the wall, her whole body showing a lazy appearance. Her fingertips showed a bright red color, trembling slightly as she smiled mockingly. "You know that." I turned and left, but I still heard her whisper behind me, "I don't want to be like this either, but for him, I'm willing to pay any price." From then on, Quinn treated everyone very badly. She wasn't like this originally. After many attempts at persuasion, my relationship with her completely froze. Quinn and that boy also had no more contact. The love that seemed so sincere and could last forever disappeared in an instant as if it had never existed. Half a year later, I heard that boy had recovered and could return to school to prepare for college entrance exams. As soon as he returned, Quinn showed no reaction at all. She remained as usual, busy searching for whoever dared to send me love letters. But I knew that the moment she saw that boy, she had been stunned for a long time. Time just quietly passed. The college entrance exam came, followed by our engagement ceremony, then the last day before the apocalypse. On the day the virus broke out, the Taylor and Shaw families were still celebrating together. The infected zombies had immediately turned the entire city into a human hunting ground with blood and flesh flying everywhere, corpses littering the streets. Both families chose to protect their hairs and leave first. Quinn was just a tool for political marriage to promote business, left behind in a corner of the banquet hall with unknown fate. When I found her, she had already collapsed on the ground in despair. Not far away was a zombie with a mouth full of blood charging toward her. My heart dropped. Quinn pursed her lips, calmly accepting her fate, closing her eyes tightly. The next second, a figure still wearing a waiter's uniform rushed from somewhere, pulling her into his arms. The sound of flesh being torn apart made people tremble. Quinn opened her eyes wide. The pierced body immediately struck her vision. It was exactly that boy, enduring the pain as he bent down to kiss Quinn's lips, whispering something softly. All I saw was Quinn's whole body trembling. The zombie behind the boy pulled its hand out, opening its mouth wide to bite hard into the boy's neck. He seemed to wake up from a trance, his pupils contracting. Quinn screamed hoarsely, rushing forward wanting to save him. The boy turned to look at me, his eyes flashing with calmness and sadness as if entrusting Quinn to me. "Please take care of her from now on." I gritted my teeth and had several people rush forward with me to pull Quinn away. She cried loudly, struggling to break free from us. That boy died right in front of Quinn in such a tragic way. From then on, Quinn lived like a soulless corpse until we both broke through abilities together. She seemed to find her final motivation to live, and light returned to her eyes. Later I met Vivian, loving her more deeply than anyone I had known before. One day, Vivian and I returned to the base after completing a mission outside. I immediately froze when I saw Quinn was also here. It had been a long time since I'd seen her. When she saw Vivian and me, she was also stunned for a while. I stepped forward to shield Vivian. Quinn suddenly smiled, a smile that dazzled me. Why? I didn't understand what she meant, but I was afraid Quinn would hurt Vivian, so I paid special attention to her every move to guard against her. But that night she unexpectedly came to meet with me privately, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "I have a way." I frowned in confusion. "What way?" But Quinn suddenly fell silent, shrinking into herself, her eyes hiding sadness and confusion. "You'll know later," she whispered. It forced me, it killed Connor Hall. I won't let it off easily. I still didn't understand what she was saying. The next day, Quinn seemed to become a completely different person. When she forcefully pushed open the bathroom door, I couldn't help but be stunned. A Quinn full of vitality that I hadn't seen in a long time stood before me, smiling as she gave me a thumbs up. "Remember to take really good care of your body. You're amazing." Only later did I understand that everything had a reason. What kind of person was Quinn before, and what kind of person was she now? The difference was too great. How could a person from another world transmigrate here? What price did she have to pay? Quinn had truly completely disappeared from this world. Where had she gone? What was her reason for doing this? Was it for this world or for herself? I remembered that year on the rooftop, her eyes bright as she pointed to the boy in the distant playground, gently saying, "I really like that person." Quinn should have always been happy beside that boy. The night before we had to move to the coastal base for rescue, I went looking for Vivian, but she wouldn't open the door. I left a bouquet of baby's breath outside Vivian's room door as a final apology. In the advance team I commanded, there was a very familiar face, the dancer I had once dated. Seeing me, she smiled awkwardly. I bent down to look at her still intact legs, surprised. "You have recovery abilities for your leg." No. She waved her hands while speaking. "A teacher at the art school saw my performance from before, then she helped me heal my leg and made an exception to let me into the school. Now I'm fine." So everything has its past. The power of the sea monsters was much stronger than we had imagined. In the end, our entire team decided to risk death to hold back the sea monsters so we could maintain this defensive line. When the terrible pain struck, I seemed to see a different scene. It was a strange little shop with Quinn, Yvonne, even the red-haired zombie from before, and Vivian standing quietly to one side, smiling gently as she watched them. She turned to look at me, smiling and waving. "Come here quickly. It's been so long since we met." Outside Story 3, my name is Quinn. I'm having a little trouble right now. The people at the coffee shop the other day were very strange. I seem to have gotten into trouble because of them. After school, the coffee shop owner blocked my way again. "Remember to eat all the pastries today." After saying this, she stuffed 3 boxes of egg tarts into my hands. I'm so sick of eating egg tarts I could throw up. I don't want to eat egg tarts anymore. The owner just ruffled my hair. "I know I just made too many. Remember to eat them, okay? It doesn't seem quite right to do business like this, does it? I'll buy these 3 boxes. Buy them? Are you serious?" "Seriously? 300 yuan for 3 boxes. I'll round it off for you." I think I might be hallucinating. After eating egg tarts continuously for half a month, my relationship with the shop owner reached a new level. The owner said her name is Yvonne. She looks very beautiful but is quite eccentric. The coffee shop she runs is even more peculiar. The shop manager's name is Vivian Cross. She's also beautiful and equally strange as the owner, but you really shouldn't judge people by appearances. Who could have guessed that this seemingly frail, weak girl could both slap and curse at the man who came to the coffee shop to harass customers the other day? How can you do business like this? I'll buy these 3 boxes? Buy them? Are you serious? Seriously, 300 yuan for 3 boxes, I'll round it off for you. I think I might be hallucinating. After eating egg tarts continuously for half a month, my relationship with the shop owner reached a new level. The owner said her name is Weavon. She looks very beautiful but is quite eccentric. The coffee shop she runs is even more peculiar. The shop manager's name is Vivian Cross. She's also beautiful and equally strange as the owner, but you really shouldn't judge people by appearances. Who could have guessed that this seemingly frail, weak girl could both slap and curse at the man who came to the coffee shop to harass customers the other day? I regarded her as my ideal role model because I had discovered a small secret. Roughly speaking, there were at least 4 waiters in the shop, and they were all her boyfriends. The owner revealed to me that actually there are 5 people, but one person went out with the group manager and hasn't returned yet. They even have a group manager. The owner naturally replied, "My shop runs very seriously. The waiters in this coffee shop are also very handsome. As I said, this coffee shop is very strange. I wish that all the people around me will forever be happy, peaceful, and achieve everything they desire. Everything seemed to have ended, but we still have a future, a new beginning ahead of us." Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. I truly appreciate your comments, feedback, and thoughts. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel. See you again in the next story.